All right, well, welcome to this, my first live webinar where I'm going to be talking about all the human design types. There are four main types, and I'm going to be going through each one so you have a better understanding of your own type and even a little more of an understanding of all the other types that exist out in the world. And I'm sure you have at least three of the other types or two of the other types in your life, and some of your friends, family, colleagues, people you bump into, whether you know it or not. But I'm excited to talk about it today. So I am Kelly Studer, and I thought I might share a little bit first about how I came to human design. Actually, about 5 years ago, a friend of mine mentioned it to me, and I looked up my type. Oh, projector. Okay, what does that mean? And there wasn't as much information available. So I didn't really explore it then, or it didn't grab me at that time. And then it just seemed to somehow float back into my life about 2 years ago, and I got immediately hooked. It just kind of reeled me in, and I felt like I just went down this rabbit hole, kind of like obsessed to understand as much as I could about it and to experiment with it in my life and see, you know, what that was like. And I just kept going and going and going. And the more I explored it, the more it just kept blowing me away. It was almost spooky how much truth there was in it. And so I decided to find a teacher to kind of really help me explore it more deeply. And I found that teacher in John Martin, who lives in Hawaii. And for about 9 months, I got a really deep education from him on everything human design, and my passion for it just kept growing and growing. And I got to the point where I'm like, I think I'm here to share this with other people. And so here I am sharing it with you and working with people one-on-one who want my help and guidance and helping them understand more deeply what is in their design, how they were designed to be from almost before they were born. 88 days before they were born is when it all began, and really what your unique reason is for being here, your unique purpose, and how to live, your true nature and start to recognize the aspects of you that have been conditioned by outside forces, your parents and teachers and society at large. Like, so many things have conditioned all of us. And what I love, absolutely love about human design is it helps you see what is really you and what has been conditioning, and you can start to strip that away, and the real you starts to emerge. And it's quite something. It's really amazing. I would say the biggest aha I've had from this, I don't know, rabbit hole deep dive into human design that has changed my life dramatically is I've recognized that my mind is not my authority, my inner authority. And I had been using it as an inner authority for most of my life, making decisions from my mind. What should I be doing? I should go after it. I should make that happen. How do I do that? How do I plan it? Making goals, all these things, right? That we we learn to do. And this has helped me see and actually really experiment and play with, like, what if I just watch my mind and see what it's trying to do, but I don't let it guide me. I use it to just show me what's going on in life, maybe make some sense of it, analyze it, process it, communicate, play with it, kind of have my mind be a playground, but not the authority in my life. And human design has shown me where my inner authority really resides. And as I've continued to explore that, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but it's just brought a lot more ease, a lot less anxiety, a lot less worrying, a lot more excitement about the mystery of life and what life is bringing me, and that it's all perfect. It's amazing just the way it is, and I can just, enjoy the ride essentially of my life. So I hope that inspires a little bit in each of you. Like, ooh, I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have more ease and flow in your life and not be struggling and pushing and hustling all the time? Get to relax a little bit more in your life and enjoy it. All right, so with that, we're going to dive into this topic of type in human design. This is one of the most basic, most important foundational elements that you can know about yourself. I'm assuming that everyone here on this call has maybe pulled their chart by this point and knows what their type is. If not, you can still enjoy this and then go look up your chart and be like, oh, I knew it. I guess I was going to be that one. Or, whoa, I was really off base. I guess I don't know myself as well as I thought. I've got some work to do. So, well, it can be fun either way. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about what does this whole type thing in human design even mean. Essentially, it is not a personality or like a psychological type like you might see with like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or StrengthsFinder or things like that. This is really the type that is in the body. It's in your genetics and in your aura. And I know that's kind of like a woo-woo word, the aura, but all I mean by your aura is, imagine there's like a 12-foot bubble around you wherever you go, and it is literally kind of communicating out something kind of specific, something very specific, not kind of specific, that you're not conscious of, but other people are definitely sensing it, even if it's unconscious to them too. So we're all have a specific aura that we're projecting out, so to speak, and this is part of your type, a big piece of your type. So there are 4 types. I'm going to share a little bit more about those, each of those types and what the types are in a second, but essentially there's 2 energy types and there are 2 non-energy types. So for the non-energy types, they do not have constant access to their own energy generating capacity. Therefore, their energy and stamina to work is not reliably available. But it is for the energy types. So there's a big distinction between these types. And there are key elements to each type that I'm going to explore with you, but I just want to give you kind of the high level of what these pieces are. So the first is strategy. Each type has a strategy. And when you follow this strategy, you can really maximize the energy that's available to you. And each type also has a not self theme. So these are like a signpost when you experience it that you're probably not following your type and you're not maximizing your energy. It might even be creating sort of unhealthy energy in your body and can lead to not only the not self theme, which each one has, but also it can start to show up in just feeling run down or sickness or disease or any other things that can come into the body when it's not operating smoothly. It's like if energy is gas in your gas tank and your gas tank runs on supreme regular, and you're putting diesel in it, it's probably, that car is not going to run as well, right? So that's kind of the equivalent of a not self theme, like the wrong energy's in there or something's not quite right about it. So there'll be a signpost for that, which I'll share. There's also a signature for each one, which is the opposite of the not self theme. It's the signature it's the reward you get when you really follow your strategy. And each type has sort of its own unique reward when you are in alignment with how you're using your energy and maximizing that. So strategy, honestly, once you know what your strategy is and you can start experimenting with it, is if like you learn nothing else about human design, if you just practice your strategy as much as possible, it really can be life-changing, because the strategy enables you to access the unique ways energy is designed to flow through you and throughout your life, and can really determine the way your health, your sexuality, your relationships, and even your life purpose play out. So you can really get in touch with what is correct and healthy with you, and you can start to trust what to say yes and no to, no matter what life is bringing you, and just really kind of be flowing with it rather than using your mind to direct your life and think, your mind knows what's best for you. It doesn't. It's all in the body. All of that intelligence and wisdom is in the body. But almost every single one of us, I haven't met anyone yet who wasn't conditioned out of their natural body's connection to this strategy. You already knew this strategy and were operating this way, like when you were first born, probably in the first couple years. And then we get conditioned out of it. We get conditioned to think with our mind and stop listening to the body. And so now as adults, we don't really, the mind is so loud and noisy that we oftentimes don't really know how to pay attention to the signals from our body and how our energy works. So this is just going to be an opportunity to start to pay closer attention to that. It might take a while, be patient with it. You might not feel like you could hear from it at all or get senses, but it's there. And the body responds first, the mind is second. It always goes in that order. So sometimes it's just slowing down enough to go, oh wait, what was that? I felt something. Maybe it's trying to tell me something before the mind goes and makes up a whole bunch of stuff, essentially. The one thing I really want to emphasize here is, human design is not a belief system. It's not some sort of dogma. It is honestly a tool that can point out certain things to you, but you need to go do the experiment and verify for yourself what is your truth. So don't even believe what I'm saying today or anything you hear about what's in your chart. It's really like, take it as a suggestion and then go experiment, go play with it and see what you notice, see what comes from that awareness. And is it, what's shifting or changing? And do you feel more and more at ease? Then that might be a sign that, like, oh, you really are connecting to your true self versus just you're in that conditioned, behavior mode. So, okay, so here we go. I'm going to show a couple of slides throughout this. So this is the first one I want to show you, which is just what are the types? What are these 4 types? So the 2 energy types are the first 2 that are listed here on this slide. So generators make up 70% of the population, the vast majority. And there are actually 2 subtypes of generators. There are pure generators and there are manifesting generators. And it's about an even split between that 70% population. So I'm sure many of you who are here today are generators or manifesting generators and are probably very curious about what your strategy is and all the things I just talked about. So we'll get to you first in a moment. Manifestors are also an energy type, and they make up only about 8% of the population now. It used to be 10, which is still not a lot, but it's actually going down. So less and less manifestors are being born these days. I don't know why that is necessarily, but it's the evolution of humanity, and this is what it's looking like through the eyes of human design type. The projectors are non-energy types, and they make up about 22%, and we're seeing their population increase. There are more of them being born now. They're actually the newest humans on the planet. They've really only existed for not even 300 years. All the other ones have been around for like 60,000 or however long humans have been around. So the projectors are a little bit of these new alien types that have joined our planet in the last few centuries. And the reflectors are a tiny percent of the population, also a non-energy type, only 1% of the population. One thing I wanted to mention here is that it's easy to get hung up on this word manifesting or manifester, like, oh, a lot of us think that manifesting means that you can magically make things happen. You have this magic power, right? I think of it and I can make it real in my life. And in a way that is what manifesting is, but in a more basic way, you can imagine that manifesting is really, once you get into action, things can become real. Or once you speak something out and it's heard, the words have come out, and it moves into action, then yeah, it can become real. So we all, no matter what our type, can manifest essentially in that way. But the manifesting generators and manifestors, they're like wired for action. So that's why that, I guess, that word is used in the title of their type. But they're not more special or more magical beings than anyone else. We're all magical beings and can do amazing things. Just wanted to mention that. Okay. So there we go. All right, so let's start with the generators. So I mentioned that there's two types of generators. There are the pure generators and the manifesting generators. There are some slight differences. I'm going to discuss that, but they do have the same aura, strategy, not self-theme, and signature. So we're just really going to talk generally about being a generator. So you can kind of imagine why they're called generators. They generate their own energy. They create their own energy. They're their own engine, if you will. And they are 70% of the population for a reason. We probably really wouldn't continue to exist as a species if we didn't have this many generators. Because generators are here to make the babies and do the work. And I mean, they've got the energy for it, right? We really do need them to be on this planet, or we won't exist for much longer. So just to be clear, that doesn't mean the other types can't have children. It just means the generators they're more suited to have children and lots of them if they so choose, or that's what works out. So their aura is very warm and attracting and enveloping. Essentially, if you're a generator, you're just constantly attracting things in life for you to respond to and see if you have energy for it, to move forward or move towards it or engage with it, which is kind of cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to just be attracting all these things towards them to then play with or experience? So when we get to this strategy of wait to respond, it means that you're not really designed, though, to just, initiate and push on life and use your energy any way your mind thinks it should. Instead, you're invited, as part of your strategy, is to trust that you are constantly attracting things into your life from the outside world, to respond to and see from your body, your gut response, if you will. It's really not something in the mind. It's something that you might just feel in your body in a variety of different ways, that you're responding with your body and getting a sense of whether something is correct for you to engage in, move towards, get into action around, or not. So if you're not in your strategy, you're probably using your mind to get your body into action and to be doing all the things that you're doing. And you might not be using your energy correctly. When you don't use your energy correctly or in a way that's healthy, it's almost like you're degenerating your energy rather than using it in a really healthy, vital kind of way. And so essentially, the more things that you say yes to that is from the mind rather than the body's response, you actually are blocking more things coming to you that actually might be healthy for you. So it can be really difficult in the beginning to even identify or understand how your body talks to you in this way, how it responds. There are a number of ways that you might be able to notice it. For some, it's vocal, it's verbal in some way. It's like something comes in and you make noises. You might be like, that's a no, right? Like you're making some kind of noise. It's like I don't want that. It could be a ooh, so some people it's auditory. For others, it might be something more like you just feel a lightness, something more expansive inside of you, or a tightening or a heaviness, or your body's not even moving, even though your mind's going, yeah, I should do that. Yeah, let's do that. But your body's just sitting there, not moving. That might be a no. But let's be clear, generators, there is no rationalization to the way your body responds. It's just, yes, I have energy, yep, or I don't. Or it could be, I don't know yet. I don't know, but there might be no feeling. It's kind of a neutral. So it's either your car is going to get into gear because it's a yes, let's go. Your car's, going to get into park. Nope, not moving anywhere. Mm-mm. Or it could just be sitting in neutral, kind of idling, like not sure yet. So that's what you want to pay attention to. And you can notice what your mind does with that. It might try to explain it, or oh, that I think what this means is this. And if you could just notice what your mind's trying to do with it, and either change the mind of the mind is trying to change the body's response because, oh, I can't say no to my boss. So I'm going to have to do it anyway, but your body's going, to that project. I don't have energy for that project. That can be a bit unnerving at first, but you can start with simple things as a generator to get to know the body. You can just, at the grocery store, as you're walking by the produce, what are you wanting to reach out and put in your cart versus, oh, that's weird. I thought I would want an apple, but I don't, I guess. Okay. That you can get to know your body's response in sometimes those simple ways. Another good training for this is when people ask you yes or no questions, you can kind of see how your body responds to that yes or no question. If you get an open-ended question, hey, what do you want for dinner? Your body doesn't know how to respond to that, right? It doesn't talk in, oh, I think I would really like, Italian food tonight. Body doesn't work that way. So you may have to ask somebody, like, ask me something specific, do you want Italian food? Huh, no? Okay, I gotta know on that one. Okay, what else? Ask me another one. Do you want Thai food? It's like, yeah, that sounds good, right? You can kind of feel in your body. So that might be just a way to start to tap into it, that are just simple. But essentially, all your body is doing, and it's doing it all the time, is responding to life. So get to know how it talks to you is my suggestion. So this not self theme for generators is frustration. Sometimes it's impatience, especially for manifesting generators. So frustration happens when you start really pushing on life, and then you're feeling tired or frustrated, right? The frustration comes from not really using the energy correctly, and it might be starting to degenerate, and it can be agitating in the body. It just doesn't really feel good, like you're really not using your time well, kind of feeling like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else, anything but this, right? That kind of frustration. So it's probably because you've been overriding your body's response and your mind's been pushing you. So that's if you're noticing a lot of frustration around certain things in your life, maybe you haven't been paying attention to the body. Can you say no to it? Can you slowly start to remove those things and unblock, that all the stuff that wants to come in for you to respond to that might be more correct, more healthy for you? And the signature is, as I mentioned before, the reward for when you're really following your strategy and you're using your energy well. So it's deep satisfaction. Generators are here to be just deeply satisfied. And you're also here to do work that you love. And that doesn't necessarily mean, your career or your paid work, but anything that you're doing. You really, as generators, shouldn't be doing anything that you don't love. I know it sounds like, well, that's nice. We have to do lots of things that we don't love, but it's probably not healthy for you. And if it's not healthy for you, why would you do it? Yeah, it might make some other people a little upset, might make their life a little bit harder, but it's healthy for you. So that's something to just contemplate. The last thing that I wanted to mention, each type has some suggestions on sleeping, when to go to bed and how to get your best sleep. I mean, how many of us have had trouble with sleep in our lifetime? Well, for generators, you were probably conditioned, you know, when you were young, when to eat, when to play, when to sleep, when to do everything, because, you know, when your parents thought you should. You probably might have even had like a bedtime, you know, you go to bed at 8 p.m. every night when you're 8 years old or whatever it is. But generators really shouldn't go to bed until you're exhausted, like you've really used up all the gas in your tank. And when the tank is empty, you go to bed. So really not having a set bedtime is really healthy for you, and to just pay attention to like amount of energy, go to bed. And it also means not pushing past and trying to get a second wind. um, and see if you really start to follow that, if you might have better, deeper sleep. Because when you're asleep, generators, that's when you are getting fresh gas put in your tank. So when you wake up in the morning, you wake up with a full tank. My other analogy for this is, you know, like they say with your phones that you don't want to start recharging it until it gets down to like 1%. You don't want to recharge it at 30% because the battery will start to denigrate and it won't last as long. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You want to be down to 1% or 0 when you go to bed, not 30%. So that could be something else to try out. Okay, so manifesting generators. I said I was going to mention the difference about manifesting generators versus pure generators. So manifesting generators are really wired for action. They respond like right away. It's really fast for them. I sort of think of them if everyone was lined up on one of those lines to run a race and the gun goes off, the manifesting generator is the first off the line. You know, ooh, I want that. Yeah, yes, no, ooh. And they're pretty darn busy. You know, manifesting generators are the ones that when they're really doing something that they love, that they have energy for, can go and go and go. They have the most sustainable energy. The one thing to pay attention to as a manifesting generator is that you want to sort of slow down just enough to see after that initial response, you know, is it still there even 10 minutes later? Because there's a tendency if you jump too fast that you get into it and then, you might skip a bunch of steps and jump ahead and take shortcuts because you're so fat, you know, you're kind of like raring to go, that then if you go too fast, you might have to go back and redo steps and slow down. And that's where some of that impatience can come in, of that not self theme. So if you really just, you know, don't move too fast on your response, but just see if it sticks around a little bit longer. Those skipping steps and shortcuts will actually be more effective and they will work out well for you. Now, the other thing I'd say about manifesting generators is you're designed to be doing multiple things, not just one thing. You know, you're kind of a plate juggler, and that's great for you. That's really healthy for you to have multiple interests and kind of switching gears between them when you have the energy for it. There's something about being a manifesting generator, though, is that you might want to get used to and be comfortable with being someone who pencils things in rather than pen it in and like really stick to your commitments, because you really kind of have to keep checking in the moment, because your body responds in the now. It's not responding to something in the past or something in the future. It's just, do I have energy right now for this thing? So someone might call you up and say, hey, do you want to have, I don't know, get together for drinks next Thursday? And your body's like, ooh, that sounds good. Yeah. And then that day comes along and you see it on your calendar, and all of a sudden your body's going, I don't have energy for it. Oh no, what do I do? I said I would go to drinks. So I tell manifesting generators, like, you know, say yes when it's a yes, and say, but let's check in that day or when that's, you know, coming, to see if it still feels good. You know, like, you need some wiggle room to reschedule and cancel and, you know, not do things that you said you were going to do before when your response was yes. So some experiments for you generators out there. One thing you could start playing with right away is stop initiating. Stop trying to go out and make things happen and push on life. And a good way to do that is, don't speak unless someone's speaking to you. Really just kind of sit back and see what's coming in, and don't follow what your mind is trying to push you to do. Just notice it, but maybe not follow it. Wait for your body to respond. But I find that just like the practice of not speaking until someone talks to you can be just a great way to begin that waiting, getting used to waiting a little bit more. Second thing is try to get to know that gut response. And how does it work? Does it make noises? Does your body move? Is it something else? I love this. Like, does it make faces? Maybe you really do make faces, and you now realize, oh yeah, I'm like, my face contracts, or I start smiling, or I go, whatever it may be. So get to know it as best you can, start really paying attention. And as I mentioned before, notice the discomfort you feel when your mind's trying to get you to do stuff, but don't do it. Just be in the discomfort and wait to respond. Okay. So the manifestors. Manifestors are a very interesting breed. I'm sure we have all met a manifestor, if we're not one ourselves, because they're very noticeable. They're very noticeable. So I realized I might not share the screen while I'm talking through these, but here is the aura, the strategy, not self-theme, and the signature for the manifestors. And I'll come back to this, and I'll go through each one. So they are like manifesting generators with one, because they're wired for action, right? An energy type, but with one major difference. They don't have to wait to respond to life. It's almost like life just comes through them powerfully, and then they must act. It's like, it's not a thinking thing. It's just like, oh my gosh, I feel all this energy. This thing needs to happen, and I got to go. And there's nothing that's really going to stop me. It has to happen kind of energy. So that's an aura that is impacting. They're here to make an impact and bring their vision out, whatever this vision is that comes through them, and make these changes and get something started. But this aura is impacting and repelling. It's also like, you better get the hell out of the way. I'm coming through. This energy is very different than a generator, which is attracting, right? It's enveloping, it's warm and fuzzy. This one's not warm and fuzzy. It's look out, here I come. In fact, if you kind of get around a manifestor's aura and there's this impetus to act or move, you just naturally will start to move out of their way. It's kind of wild. You're like, whoa, who's this person? Oh, geez. It's pretty intense. So, this type is very independent and self-motivated, very self-contained. They're really not someone who's going to ask you for your advice. They just have a knowing of like what they need to do, and they're going to need to do it now. But with that, they can sometimes feel quite isolated and lonely, and do need a lot of alone time, and maybe not be as social, and really just go about their life until that moment when this urge, it's almost like an impulse or an urge, just comes through, and they just know what they need to do, and they're going to go do it. So the strategy for a manifestor is to inform. As you can imagine, if you're a manifestor and all of a sudden you just get this very strong urge to do something, and it needs to happen now, that's how it feels. It's like there's no waiting. They don't naturally want to inform people of what they're doing. They're just going to go. But then that can really piss a lot of people off, because they have an impact, right? What they do is usually impacting other people. So this strategy to inform is, taking a beat once you feel that urge, that impulse, that vision of what you need to do, is to wait one moment, write down a list of who this is going to impact, and let them know what you're about to do. Inform them. Let me be clear. It's not asking for permission if you can do it, because you're going to do it. You need to do it. This is part of your type. This is what you're here to do. But by informing, you might reduce some of the resistance, and people will feel less ignored, disrespected, or basically run over when you are going to do what you're going to do. And it's hard sometimes for manifestors to be trusted. It's hard to trust a manifestor because they're kind of unpredictable and you don't know what they're going to do from moment to moment. So, you know, the biggest fear of a manifestor is that they're going to be controlled or they're going to get interfered with. And the not self theme that can come for manifestors is anger. And that anger arises either because they start to stop initiating because people get upset with them, so then they just don't do the thing that they know they need to do, and they sort of squash it, and I'm sure that can build a lot of anger inside. Or they become the steamroller who is not aware of their impact, but then kind of leaves, you know, all this craziness in their wake, and then they got to deal with the backlash and all the people who are upset, and that could be frustrating and angering as well. But this informing strategy, when they really start to get the hang of it, can lead to the signature, the reward of feeling this peace, this like, I'm really having the impact that I'm meant to have. And, you know, it actually is supported by people because I'm informing them, and they're kind of lining up around it, and they're understanding it on some level. And that piece is just quite exquisite. So, you know, it's for the manifestor, it's getting comfortable with this pushing, this always pushing kind of aura that you have. And it's kind of recognizing that, like, you know, if you were to step into traffic, you hit people, not the other way around. You know, you're kind of like, as my teacher would say, you're a bear that has a sign on it that says, come pet me. But no one really wants to come pet you. And to just be sort of comfortable with that. It's, you know, not try to be the warm, fuzzy one. All right, so then there is an experiment that these manifestors can do. All right, so when you feel the urge to initiate, make that list of everyone it might impact and go about informing them when you're about to do it, and then act, do it, just keep going. The second thing would be to notice how people act around you. It might, you know, a lot of manifestors aren't really aware of their impact, and they're not really that focused on themselves. They're not like self-absorbed like you might think. They're really not. But they also may not be aware of their impact. So maybe start paying attention. You know, do people get out of your way when you walk into a room? Or, you know, maybe if you're just going about your business, you know, it's they just leave you alone, and it's quite lovely. But maybe there are times when you're like, wow, you know, people really do kind of move, or they shift around. Like, maybe just notice your impact. So those would be a couple of experiments. Okay, projectors. These are the beginning of the non-energy types. So projectors, as I mentioned before, are only about 22% of the population, and they're the newest humans here. They're kind of got a very different aura, strategy, and signature success, but you can see it is very different. Oops, how do I, sorry about that. So projectors, this aura of absorbing and penetrating, it's like you're the most open to taking in other people. So that's what you're absorbing. You're taking in all these other humans that are around you, and you're able to kind of get a sense of other people. You can see other people more deeply, and that's where the penetrating part of the aura comes in as well, that you can really go deep into people, really see something, be with something that is going on for them. So this strategy of waiting for an invitation is really to protect you. The invitation is like letting somebody basically penetrate that deeply in and really see you. but they have to see you first. They have to recognize that this is one of your gifts, and they got to be open to it. And the only way you're going to know if they're open to it is if they invite you in to really share. What it could be that an invitation could look like someone asking for your opinion. I really want to know what you think. What do you see? What do you think? And for projectors, you're really here to see others, not really see yourself. You're here to guide and direct others. You're here to help generators know how to use their energy well and to be healthy in the world. So these invitations are not for everything. It's not like you have to be invited for every single little thing in your life. Don't take it too literally. It's much more about the bigger things in life, really invitation for friendship, for bonding, for romantic relationships. The projectors are not meant to be doing a lot of pursuing of, and initiating and going after friendships and people in their life and trying to get them to bond with them. It just doesn't work for projectors. They got to wait for people to come to them. And same with opportunities, job opportunities, maybe even a place to live. It's weird how projectors, in a way, because they're enveloping and they're penetrating, they're always attracting attention. When their aura is attracting attention, so they don't have to say anything to attract that attention. So we don't need to work so hard. Projectors don't need to work so hard to be recognized and appreciated. They really just need to sit back and wait to see who shows up and sees them and says, hey, what do you think? And then you're in, and you can go in deep. So if you're not invited and you really try to go in deep with somebody, they're going to be like, hey, whoa, that might be too much. And it can really hurt you as a projector more, because you can see things and they don't want to know. And, you gotta kind of have to live with that. So it takes a lot of discipline as a projector to really wait for those invitations. And in the meantime, just really be involved in the things that you're passionate about, that bring you bliss, learn all the things that you're excited about. Projectors are incredibly intelligent with learning systems and with taking in lots of information. I mean, they really, and it's not even a mental thing. It's just something they can do, and they're very efficient. But being a non-energy type, this is a really key thing. They don't have their own energy. They're getting it from generators and manifestors. They're actually eating their energy, and that's what's fueling them. So if you were to send a projector off to a cabin all by themselves for a week, they probably really wouldn't do much the whole time, because they wouldn't have any energy. There'd be no generators around to give them that energy. But it also means that their energy is not sustainable. So they're not meant for 9-to-5 jobs. They're not meant to work the long hours. They're just not designed that way. So they need to take breaks and naps. I mean, I have to say, I learned I was a projector and I thought none of this made sense. I'm so high energy, I can do so much and I can go. And I didn't believe any of it. And it's that projectors are conditioned to think that they're manifesting generators and are doing this. Oftentimes projectors, somewhere in their early 40s, if they haven't realized they're a projector and have been going, they'll burn out big time. They could end up with just total midlife crisis or a panic attack or any other sort of thing where their body just is like, I've had it. I can't keep going like this. So it's really paying attention to when you're out of energy, take a break. You got to stop. I joke with projectors that if you do have a full-time job and it's a long hours kind of job, you're probably going to get your work done really fast. And just don't tell anybody how fast you're getting it done. Go take a break, go walk around, whatever, because if you keep working at that pace, people will just give you more and more and more, and then you're going to burn out. So you got to be a little tricky with it. So one of the dangers for projectors is that because they're so open to conditioning, they often really don't know themselves, and they can be whatever anyone wants them to be, because they're so desperate to be seen and recognized that, you can end up doing this dance of, what do people want me to be? I can be anything they want me to be. And it can end up in that not self theme of bitterness, like, just bitter that no one really gets me, no one really sees me. But if you're acting out your conditioning, then you're not being a projector. You're being, you're conditioning. You're just whatever anybody might want you to be. And it's learning how to discern between who really sees you, which you feel in your body. Again, this is where projectors can tap into their body, like, does this person really see me, or are they seeing what they want to see, or they just, they just need something from me, but that's not me. That's, I don't think they really get me. Then they're not right for you. These are people who are not right for you. And that's not like a judgment. It's just, if they don't see you, move on. Wait till somebody does. And then, once you get the invitation, you don't have to be invited over and over again. You just have to still be recognized. But all invitations do have an expiration date, and kind of feel into that. And some invitations will be a day long, a week long, years long, could be a lifetime long, but they have different lengths of time. Signature for a projector is success. And that doesn't really mean like success on the societal, way we talk about it. It really means success as being yourself, and that you're able to know when you're recognized and appreciated and be able to share your gifts. And it just feels so good as a projector to know that someone sees me, and then what I can see in them and bring to them, they really take it in, and it makes a difference to them. So that's success, and it's definitely the opposite of bitterness, the not self theme. For sleeping, for projectors, you definitely want to go to bed before you even get tired. And you really want to kind of detox from the energy you've been taking in from others. So even sleeping alone for some or part of the night, all of the night or some of the night, is actually really healthy and will help you kind of clear out that energy, leftover energy that isn't yours, and get some good sleep. So a little bit of a different strategy there. Last but not least, we're going to talk, oh, wait a minute. I have to talk about the experiment real quick. Okay, experiment for projectors. Same thing, really. Don't speak until you're spoken to. Get used to that for a little bit. Projectors are oftentimes talking because they're trying to see, do you see me? Do you see me? And if I talk, maybe they'll see me. So that's a big one. Just even if you did that alone for a week, I think you'll notice a lot. Another experiment, are you plugged into the right people for you? And how do you know? How can you tell who sees you and who doesn't? I think that'd be a good question to ponder and contemplate. Also with projectors, because you go in so deep, you really, when you are invited, you really want to choose your words wisely. It's almost like the archetype of an archer. You got one shot to get it in. So you pull that arrow and you get it in the bullseye. So your words are like darts. You say it, you get out. So those are the experiments for the projector. Okay, I'm gonna go fast on the reflector one because it's 1% of the population. Don't know if there's anyone here who is a reflector, but it's good to know and interesting to know about reflectors. So their strategy, their aura is they're completely wide open. So they're just reflecting, they're like the mirrors in our society, in our world, and they're just sampling all of it. Really, they're just taking in all these samples from everything they're taking in, and then are a mirror for it. Now, the interesting thing is that they're not as conditionable as projectors, even though they're wide open. They almost have this protective aura that kind of helps them recognize that it's not personal, that most everything in their life is not personal, that they're really just seeing it all, and they're reflecting it back out. They have a very interesting strategy. They have to ideally wait for an entire lunar cycle, 28 days, before they're really going to get clarity on what's correct for them. And it's because they really need to sample. As the moon goes through an entire cycle, it's almost like it gives all these different samples of what, you know, you might experience or might be possible. And they got to take that all in and then see what is clear to them after 28 days. The not self theme is disappointment. You know, the disappointment can come from feeling invisible and, you know, not being always noticed. But, you know, if they're really here to experience the newness and freshness of every day, and really be kind of detached from it all and just be these mirrors. And when they do that, they can have the signature reward of surprise, like just how much awe and magic there is in life, and the surprise of it, and how much they get to experience when they're not making it personal about them. So their experiment would be to try not to speak until spoken to as well, try to get attention, speak into what you're able to pick up on in your environment while you're waiting for your own clarity in your life, and really to just sample everything over time, waiting for clarity before making that decision. You know, if you're a reflector and you're in an unhealthy environment for too long, it really can drain you of your vitality, and you might get really sick. So it's really essential even to have a dedicated creative space or alone space that you can go to just kind of, you know, shed yourself of all that stuff that you're taking in that might not be healthy for you. And just, you know, you're so in tune with your environment that you really want to be in a healthy environment for you as much as possible. Okay. So I just wanted to mention again that if you want to be on my mailing list so that you can get updates on future webinars that I do, and want to join one of these live calls, and you can sign up on my mailing list. It's at kellystuder.com on the free resources page. Or if you want to schedule a session with me to go in deep to your particular chart and start exploring it, you can do that there. And I look forward to, you know, seeing more of you there. And from here, I am just going to open it up to questions. So does anyone have a question about any of the types? Anything that's burning? Go ahead and put it in the chat. And no question is a dumb question. You know, this is probably new to many people, and some of it may not make sense. So really any question is a good question. And I bet you are not the only one who's wondering. So don't be shy. Okay. Carmen asked, I'm curious to understand the experiment of the generators about not initiating. So when I talk about initiating, maybe one way to think about initiating, which is not healthy for a generator, is when you find yourself asking yourself even questions like, what should I do? You know, how do I solve this problem? What's the next step I should take? And you're really trying to do that with your mind. Even just something like that, if you then start to go after some plan you've laid out, that is a form of initiating. It's initiating from the mind. The mind is now trying to be the authority. And you may may not have any energy for that, but the mind's like, but this is what needs to happen, right? This is what will make me more money, or this is gonna make me feel happier, or whatever it might be. So initiating is doing anything that your mind convinces you that you need to be doing. Anything. You know, your body, like I said, that the life is literally constantly sending you stuff to respond to. It is showing up in an email. It's showing up when you're watching television and you see something on the screen and all of a sudden your body lights up and you're like, oh, whoa, my body is saying I have energy for something. What was just there, right? Like, there's constant stuff. You know, you even turn your attention in the room to something else and you might notice something in your body. You know, I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone. I'm sure it has. I don't know if you've paid attention to it, but sometimes you just find yourself getting up off the couch and you're walking into the living room or into the kitchen. You open up the refrigerator and like, oh, what am I doing here? I guess I'm hungry. Oh, okay. It's like your body did it. Your mind didn't do it, right? It's like, is your body is really the one that's responding and telling then your mind like, oh, we can get into action. We can do something now. Right? I've got energy for it. And now your mind can have fun with that. You know, that's the playground of the mind, but it's not the mind doing the directing and the initiating and all of that. It's waiting. You're waiting for the body to respond. And then the mind can say, oh, good, we get to do something. Let's go. And the body's like going to be ready to do it. It's going to be all fired up. I think for generators, there can be a real like cognitive dissonance for a while where you might start to really pay attention to your body and know how it talks to you. And then all of a sudden it says it doesn't have energy for something that your mind's like, well, no, we have to do it. We're going to do it anyway. Right? Like, or we have to, this is going to mess things up in my life. You know, this life that I've got planned, this that the mind thinks it needs to do. And there can be a bit of a struggle at first to which one do you listen to? And you know what? I think even that's part of the experiment is, well, do what the mind does. What happens? Do you feel frustrated or do you feel deeply satisfied afterwards? Maybe really listen to the body and ignore what the mind says and see what happens. You know, how do you feel? But the mind is often in the future and in the past and hardly ever right here in this moment. The body is only ever here in this moment. It's always now. Do I have energy? Now. So, you know, even for generators and manifesting generators, just because you have energy for something now or not doesn't mean it'll be the same tomorrow when, you know, it's like you could have all the energy in the world when you get up in the morning to go to work that day and the next day not. You'd be like, well, that's weird. You know, why am I so energized today for my work and then the next day you're not? Well, it's just the body's responding in the now. And the mind doesn't get that. So, you know, initiating full, you know, essentially is anything your mind's trying to get you to do without the body, you know, paying attention to the body's response. Okay, here's another question from Alexandra. One of the lines from my chart uses the word martyr. What does it mean generally? Because it does not sound awesome. Yeah, there are some funny words that get used in human design that are like, what? I'm not a martyr. I don't want to be a martyr. What does that mean? Martyr is in reference to something that's in your profile. And profile isn't necessarily something I'm going to go into today. I will definitely be doing future webinars on profile. But if you've seen your chart, it says profile, there's going to be two numbers there. One number, a slash, and another number. If you've got a 3 in there, it might also say, you're a martyr. But I don't really think that that is a good name for it. I don't give it that name. I think of it more as the one who is the most adaptive, the most resilient, but is also going to have a lot of trial and error in life. And that's the whole point. Like, you go through lots of trial and error so that you know what works and what doesn't work. But the martyr thing, don't worry about it. Just put it out of your mind. You're probably not a martyr the way that it's meant. in that context. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Can human design help with relationships? No. I'm just kidding. Of course, there's a lot about everything we do is in relationship with other people's auras, and their auras affecting ours and we're affecting theirs. So everything is kind of a relationship, unless we literally live like by ourselves in the mountains and we never see another person, then we're in relationship. And my projector aura is affecting each and every one of you, and your auras are affecting each other person in this room. So human design can help us understand more about the dynamics of the relationships in our life, especially if we know something about their design and our own design. And essentially, there are ways you can do connection charts where you can see like what happens when you combine these two charts together. It really can be interesting to see what things will seem easier for you in your life when you're around this person, what things get a little harder, why you're attracted to certain people, as well as eventually sometimes repulsed by the same person. So human design can shed a lot of light on some of those dynamics, and that can be helpful because it can start to explain some dynamics that maybe you've struggled with in certain relationships with, like a sibling or a parent, or really anyone, a boss, a loved one. So yeah, there's lots and lots you can explore on that front. Okay, another question. Are there certain types that get along better? For example, if two projectors connect and they're both waiting to be asked or invited, is that an issue? Is it easier between certain types than others? That is an amazing question. I think that any type can go with any type and find a way to live in some sort of harmony when they are recognizing each other and for who they are, and you really start to allow yourself and the other person to live out their true nature, then it's absolutely amazing. And the beauty of human design is the more you know about yourself, the more you start to be more open to how other people are, because we're all so freaking unique and different, and it's beautiful. We're all designed the way we are for a reason. Two generators in relationship can be really interesting because you have your own energy and wanting to use it in different ways, but you can really learn a lot from each other, I think, when you've got two generators together. But you also have some really interesting dynamics when you get two non-energy types together. For example, you might actually feel just so relaxed when you're around somebody else. If you're a non-energy type and you're around a non-energy type, like you're not really being invaded by their energy and them yours. So it can just be super relaxing, but it could also mean that you don't really feel super motivated around each other, and it could end up with a lot of sitting around on the couch, which is not a bad thing. But if you're using your mind in your relationship and you're not on type, so to speak, it really doesn't matter. It can be a mess, and it can also be just two people not living a self that seem to make it work. It can kind of go any and all directions. But I definitely have noticed, like when I look at my husband's chart and I look at mine and I see certain things, it's like, oh, he's a generator, I'm a projector, and luckily I just really like his energy. I like being around his energy. It feels good. I'm like, okay, eating his energy, taking it in. It like tastes good to me, so to speak. That sounded kind of gross, but you know what I mean? But there are other generators that I've been around where I'm like, oh, their energy doesn't really feel good to me. So maybe not the best generator for me. It's like there's just different dynamics that are going to happen depending on the two people that get together. And they can be fun and they can be challenging, but they're all great. That's what I would say. Okay, I hope I answered all of those questions. I'm sure there are more in there that I didn't get to specifically, but waiting, if you're both projectors and you have to wait for someone to invite you, how the heck does that work? You know, it's kind of funny. I think that two projectors kind of do this dance where they just kind of get each other, and there really is never an invitation. It just sort of happens. That's my experience. All of a sudden you just find you're together a lot. And there really doesn't need to be an invitation between two projectors. It's like the invitation was already there because you're both projectors. Okay, another question. Where can I get the chart? Okay, so that you can better understand which type I am. There are a lot of places you can get free charts. I really like geneticmatrix.com. You can go to jovianarchive.com and get a free chart. There's one called My Body Graph. They all have free charts. They just lay them out in different ways. So I would just pick the one that you like looking at the most. And one word of caution, for those of you that have looked at your charts, if you're new to seeing your chart, it looks like something that's completely unintelligible. Like you can't make heads or tails of anything on there. It's just code, essentially. So what we were really doing today is just taking one piece of the code in your chart and starting to demystify it a little bit. But there's a lot going on in each of our charts because we're so incredibly unique. So I'll be continuing these webinars with different topics and dive into them so you can slowly but surely keep getting to know yourself a little bit better. Do the experiments, find out for yourself what your truth is, who you really are, and have some fun with it. Thank you, Rogers, for putting the Genetic Matrix website up there in the chat box. Okay, any other questions? I can take probably one more and then we'll wrap up. Unless that was the last question. Okay, I think all the questions have been asked. So thank you all for joining me. I hope to see some of you or many of you or all of you on the next call in about a month, and we'll continue on this journey together.